Hey, welcome to my podcast. So glad you could come by and see what I have to say. If you would please go to the website right here below, and from there in the upper right hand corner, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, you can go to X. And if you would do so, go to each one of those. I know a lot of you watch on Facebook or YouTube. But if you would go to each one of the social media sites, that you would subscribe or like or follow, whatever the terminology is for a given social media site, and that helps to boost my numbers. I appreciate that. Also, on the website, if you go to the bottom of the home page, there's a place where you can subscribe to an email, so that when I do post a new email, all I have to do is send an email out to that entire list, and everybody are become aware of the fact that there's a new episode out there for you to come and consume. So let's get after this tonight. There is a lot that we've been hearing about education. You know, we've seen stuff since the pandemic, because during the pandemic, schools closed down. You know, some of them opened up sooner, some of them opened up later. You know, the ramifications of all that time trying to learn online from home and that sort of thing. We've seen a lot of things happening with just the LGBTQ community, the trans stuff, all of that. We've seen lawsuits. We've seen parents that are upset. And so we're going to kind of take a look at kind of a couple of different things here. They all sort of somewhat tie together, but we're going to just talk about those. There was a interview that was posted online just a couple of days ago between Martha MacCallum and Randi Weingarten. Martha is a reporter on Fox News, and obviously comes from a conservative-focused background. And Randi Weingarten is the head of the American Federation of Teachers, one of the largest teacher unions in the country. And I've seen some things that Randi has said. I've seen the videos, and I always kind of wrote her off as kind of a real left-leaning crazy. In this particular interview, I do say that some of my opinions of her have changed if we are to believe what she says. And whether you believe her or not, that's up to you. I will take what she says as at its face value until she proves me otherwise. So the interview was mainly regarding a lawsuit that was filed and is now in front of the Supreme Court. I believe the school district's in Maryland, and this school district would not allow parents to opt their children out of the classroom when the teacher was reading material from a certain series of books that were LGBTQ and trans kind of oriented. And so the parents within the school district sued. And so there was a lot of interesting comments that were made. And so we're going to take a listen to the first clip out of this, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
I would say that this is a hard case, because parents, of course, have rights in terms of educating their kids, and schools have to be communities. And the moment you have a case like this with such great distrust for what is being taught in a classroom or read in a classroom, I consider that a failure from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I say this as someone who is a gay person who understands that we have to actually make sure that families are respected and families are safe and kids are safe, and that differences are acknowledged and differences are embraced. But, once you get a case like this, where, parents are uncomfortable about what is being read to their kids in a classroom, this is something that has to be dealt with in a local level, not in the Supreme Court. And so parents have rights, and they should have rights in terms of what is being taught in classrooms. And, and we're going to have to actually deal with how we ensure that kids have a safe and welcoming environment, and that we see differences and we accept differences.
Yeah, so that's a good piece. I do really appreciate the fact that she verbalizes the concept that parents should have a say, and that school districts should allow the parents to speak into what's going on in their child's education, and that it is something that should be dealt with on the local level and not elevated to the place of the Supreme Court. I was really kind of shocked, actually, to hear her say that. She talks about acknowledging that there are differences and embracing. I think, yes, we need to acknowledge that there are differences between people, between the way that they are taught to grow up. Kids grow up in different homes. Parents come from different backgrounds. The idea of having to embrace, I don't know if we necessarily, personally, I don't know if we necessarily need to embrace all these differences. We can acknowledge them without embracing them and saying it's okay. Not that to tell somebody you're different than me, so you're not okay. But to tell me that I have to embrace some of the differences that we see in our society, I don't know if I would go that far. You have to fine tune that conversation, I think, and go from there. So it is good to hear somebody at that level within the educational domain speak out and say that their parents and families need to be listened to, and that we do have to figure out a way that all this can work together. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a real mess. A second short video here.
These would not be the books I would be reading as a classroom teacher to kids who are 4 to 6 years old.
Yeah, so this lawsuit is a bunch of books, or a set of titles that were to be read in the classroom. And so again, I think it's good to hear from Ms. Weingarten that these are not something she would read. And I have a great deal of respect for that, because she is at that level that I wish maybe some of the school district people across the country would listen to her and maybe seek wise counsel from her. She didn't get to where she's at for no reason. So kind of tied into all that's going on in the schools, there is this concern with the standardized test scores, that what we have seen is in 2019, when the tests had been given, the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And so those tests were given in 2019 before the school shut down. And there was talk about, how well are we going to recover, from kids, many kids actually spending a whole school year at home, trying to learn online in an environment that is not real conducive to young kids. And we're going to take a look here at these test scores. So this is actually fourth grade reading. And I will place a link to all of these scores, or not all of them, to the fourth grade and the eighth grade. Those are the ones that people seem to use to kind of as benchmarks. But if we look at this, if we go back to 2009, we see a slow increase. The average, that's what the white dot in the middle is, and that's what we'll talk about. The ranges go from the left to the right, and certain percentiles are the blue bar. But I want to basically just look at the average. So we start out and we slowly are increasing the over 6 years here. And then for some reason in 2017, there's a dip of a single point. Then to 2019, we have a 2-point dip. And that was a point after that, the school shut down for the pandemic. And so in 2022, we see a 3-point drop and another 2-point drop last year in 2024. And so there is the tests that they tend to look at are the reading and the mathematics. There's other subjects as well, but it's the reading and the math that get talked about the most. So if we look at fourth grade and eighth grade, which is what they normally look at, I believe they test the 12th graders as well, but that doesn't get nearly as much conversation. But so if we have 4 tests, the fourth grade reading and math and the eighth grade reading and math, all 3 of those had a decline in 2024. The only one that had a single point increase was the fourth grade math. Now, there's a lot of conjecture and there's a lot of talk about what caused these decreases. But if we really go back, the decreases in reading at the fourth grade level actually started in 2017. You know, what happened? Because we see this in all of the subjects, the math, the reading, a slow climb, and then kind of this crash at the end. And so, you know, the question becomes, what is the problem here? And they don't know. They don't know. They are trying to figure that out. But Sir, we have another video that I want to play, and let it kind of talk to and to that point a little bit, and let's listen to this.
We know that money does not equate a better outcome, because in Newark, New Jersey, you have a per student, per capita expenditure that is one of the highest in the country. And you have very difficult
Martha, sweetheart, listen to me.
Please don't call me sweetheart.
It actually does. I'm sorry. My bad. It actually does matter. And in fact, some of the most some of the conservative folks who used to say that money doesn't matter actually have changed their mind. So the issue.
Well, they wanted to go to different programs and choice programs and be able to give it to parents who want to homeschool their kids and provide.
No. I'm talking about people who are actually been looking at these numbers.
Yeah. So every time I watch that, I kind of get a kick out of when Randi Weingarten says sweetheart, and you know, please don't call me sweetheart. But anyway, I get a kick out of that. So they're talking about money, and I kind of was looking into this, and so there's like different parts of the money pie that are labeled differently. There's like the administrative costs, which you know school districts have to have. There's special programs. And a lot of times the way school districts deal with that is some of the money they get from the feds, whether it's Title I or these other programs that provide money into the school districts. But the interesting one is the dollars per student. And that's actually a category that you see. And again, I will post this in the description so you could go take a look at it. I did pull this up and created this. So I'll post the link to these numbers. I just put them in a spreadsheet so that we could look at a couple things real easy. This first column is simply the order, 1 through 51. We have 51 because we have the District of Columbia in here, as well as the 50 states. Second column is the states. The third column is the test scores from the NAEP that we were just talking about. And this fourth column is the amount of money, dollars per student, that are spent within each state. So here, if we just look at this is sorted by this dollar. New York State spent $33,000 per student for in I believe this was 2024. Excuse me. And so what I did was I kind of color-coded the states. Okay, so we have red is the first 12, yellow is the next, actually 13, green, so red, yellow, green, kind of stoplight colors, and then at the bottom we have the blue, which is the bottom of expenditures as far as that goes. So if we were to look at these, yeah, we see there's some states that spend a lot of money. But if we were to look at the test scores, I find this very interesting. So sort on the test scores in descending order. Okay, so Massachusetts, which was number 5 as far as spending, they're the highest test scores. You know, Wyoming, which is kind of interesting, is number 2 as far as test scores go. And so if we go down here and say that Kentucky here is about the midway through, and actually the average USA score was 237. So we notice that out of these, say, top 26 states, so the top half, that there's 7 of the red states, the states that spend the most money. But here in third place, we have Florida. That's a blue. That was from the very lowest part of the spending scale, $12,000 per student in Florida. But their test scores are right up there, tied with Wyoming for second place. Utah, same thing. Look at them, under $10,000 a student, and they came in number 5, and they were 50th in spending. And their scores are at 242. And so we see this kind of interesting, just a real jumble of as far as the spending goes. You know, we have, yes, indeed, some of the top spenders, but we also have some of the bottom spenders. You know, South Dakota, Tennessee, Mississippi, North Carolina, all of those are in that blue tier that we talked about. Here's California, although they weren't in the top, they were in the yellow in the second one. But you would think that they might be up here. Here's New York down here, actually in 38th place with a test score of 234. That's below the national average. So I would have to seek clarification because Ms. Weingarten made the comment that money does matter, and I would seek clarification as to whether she was talking about literally about dollars per student or what was her reference to, just dollars overall or whatever. But just looking at this, if the golden fleece is the test scores, then it looks like money doesn't really matter, because only about a third of the top 25, 26 schools are the high spenders, and there's 6 of the lowest echelon of spenders. So kind of interesting in looking at that, and so the question then starts to become, where are these the expenditure, so what is the difference? If we go back and we look at that and we say, okay, so Massachusetts and Wyoming, they had high scores, spent a lot of money, but yet right there with them is Florida, who spent half of what Massachusetts did, and their test scores were only 3 points below Massachusetts. There are people that are making comments that we shouldn't worry so much about reading this certain set of books, or worry about hiding the fact that your son is dressing as a girl when he goes to school. They're hiding that from the parents, and focus on the academics. And not get so caught up in some of this other stuff. Is that any kind of difference? I don't know. That's for somebody else to make that decision, but I throw it out there. Another video, last video. This one is kind of the last words, the end of the interview, but some good stuff.
I would say this: if you have a child in the classroom who's gay, you have a child in a classroom who maybe doesn't speak the language very clearly, you have all kinds of struggles that have honestly existed since the beginning of time. Right. I think you want to have a principal in a classroom that says we always respect each other. We don't call each other names. We respect each other. And then beyond that, those are behavior issues, right? And you have to deal with behavior issues, but you don't want to indoctrinate children. You don't want a child to hear a book read to the whole classroom and go home and say, why am I being taught that I was born a girl, but that was just a guess? I mean, that is going to freak out some children. They're going to be very confused at 4, 5, and 6 years old. And I know you said that you don't agree with reading this in the classroom, but I'm saying this is the problem. Then that same kid can't read and is pushed all the way to 8th grade, and they still can't read. So
Martha, yeah. I suspect that you and I agree on more that we don't. I know you don't believe me.
No, I didn't say that.
What I'm saying to you is that I saw that case, and if you have not socialized books with parents, and a book that may be controversial, and you haven't actually talked to your parents of your kids in that classroom, that's going to be a problem regardless of what's in the book. And look, that was a problem. Think about Catcher in the Rye. Think about To Kill a Mockingbird. Think about other books at different eras. That's a problem. You have to actually spend time as a school teacher or a school principal with parents before you end up talking about issues that some people will think is controversial. And so but what I'm saying to you is that 90% of teachers' times in classrooms are not about that. 90% of teachers' times in classrooms are about how we engage kids to actually be their full selves. How we make sure that kids actually
I'm honestly less concerned with them being their full self than I am with them being able to read and write and do math. And that is the biggest problem that we face in our schools today. And if I talk to one more teacher who tells me that they are not allowed to hold a child back who cannot read until he gets to the level where he can read. So let's just, I agree with you. I'll worry at home about whether or not, my child's whole self. But what I really need is for the school to teach them to read and write and do math
both.
And not get into all of this other stuff.
Both.
So.
Yeah, so that's a great ending. I do agree that, as I was looking at various different articles, there seemed to be a lot of this concept that nobody is holding anybody back anymore. There seems to be some kind of almost financial penalty. I don't know if it has to do with federal dollars or whatever, but that a lot of teachers are basically told you can't hold someone back. And I agree with the comment that was made that, I don't care about the child, becoming all that they can be. I think in elementary school, you're trying to help them, educate them, and begin to look at the world around them and find out where they fit in. But I also agree that we shouldn't be indoctrinating children in schools, especially hiding things. That's not the kind of thing that we want to teach kids. Is you're afraid that you're going to get found out, so we'll hide it. We won't tell mom and dad, or we won't tell your boss, we won't tell whoever, you won't tell your spouse. I mean, it's a dangerous place to go. To start that at the elementary school level, hiding things and pretending and playing those kinds of games. Yes, the focus needs to be on education. We need to figure out, somebody needs to figure out why we've seen this sudden drop in test scores, and let's figure out a way to engage the kids, the students, once again, all up and down the academic grade levels, and get them moving forward. The United States is slipping in ranking within the world as far as elementary and secondary school. A little bit different in the college level, but still we're not where we used to be. And we need to address that and get on with that. There is one other thing that I wanted to talk about. A couple of months ago, there was an article that came out about two different high school students that are suing the school district. Now, it's my understanding that in many instances, because the school district is a governmental agency, you're not allowed to sue the district. But an appellate judge in Tennessee took a look at a case. The student is referred to as William A., and it ruled in the student's favor, saying that he was indeed denied education under the Disabilities Education Act. William graduated with honors, but yet he couldn't even write his own name. That just stunned me when I read that. He had some learning disabilities, and so he was always given accommodations, part of his IEP, the Individual Educational Plan, which students that have any kind of disability, and in some cases just students that struggle in general, will have an IEP, which basically lays out their educational plan, taking into account their disability or that place of struggle. And many times they're given accommodations, maybe allowing them to record lectures or having extra time to take tests and that sort of thing. And so this particular individual, William, stated, hey, I just got really good at using the accommodations, and but then he gets to graduation and he can't even write his own name. So for 12 years, somebody missed. There's got to be red flags somewhere. He says that when he had to write a paper, he would go to Chat GPT. He would give the title or the topic, and then ChatGPT would spit back a paper to him. Then he would take that paper and he'd feed it into an app like Grammarly, which would then change up the words so that it fit a particular writing style, whatever was required by the professor, and he'd turn it in. And so he never had to be able to read or write. With so many electronic devices and apps, and I actually think things like Chat GPT can become a resource, but we have to figure out how to help the students realize that it's a resource and it's not an end all to it's not the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that it can become a tool that we can use, but have to be careful with that. There was a second, see here, I'm just looking at my notes here. Before he graduated, William, he could not consistently spell his own name, while signing his IEP in June. And then in June of 2023, William's own writing sample illustrated he was unable to write more than 31 words in 3 minutes. And he misspelled half of those 31 words, all of which were kindergarten level sight words he had memorized. So he had memorized this set of words so that when I suppose they gave him this test more than once to see if he was improving. If he wasn't improving, then that should have been a red flag. But I don't know. I don't know all the details. But to me, it's sad that you have somebody that can get through 12 years of school and nobody caught on to the fact that he was not able to read or write. Or if they did catch on to it, they didn't raise a concern of any kind. Just shove him on, push him on, was said in the interview, just continued to shove him down the road. There was another high school student, Alicia Ortiz. She was in Connecticut. She also had a disability, and for the first couple of years, I guess she had moved from Puerto Rico, so she had a language barrier. But she too had an IEP. She too learned how to kind of work the system, use the tools that are there, and she also ended up graduating with honors. It just continues to boggle my mind. How this happens. This particular young lady was asking for more testing because she was concerned. She wanted to go to college, and she didn't think that in her current place academically she could get there. So she kept asking for more and more testing, and finally, about a month before her graduation, the school district did provide additional testing, and that was when they realized she couldn't read or write. And she'd already been accepted at the University of Connecticut. I'm not sure how that one happened either, but hey, so interesting things in the whole realm of education, from the way because I'm not on a school board, the school boards have gotten stubborn, it seems, that and they're not willing to work and accommodate choices in people's desires. And I think Ms. Weingarten made it a good case that this is something that needs to be done. We need to work together, the parents and the schools, and if you're going to do something that might even have the possibility of being contentious, if you're going to do something like that in your classroom, reach out to the parents, let them know what's going on, and then listen to the feedback that comes back. is it money that is going to help our kids get past it? I don't think so. I think that there are other factors that play into this. And if you go to some of the links that I'll show you, they some of them break it down demographically. You can find some of that information as well. And yeah, there are demographic concerns in all of that too, depending on what state you live in. The demographics may have weighting on those scores, but then we have these individuals that are graduating without being able to read and write. Don't get it. So anyway, a lot of stuff there, a lot of interesting things. Hopefully you found it interesting. I did as I prepared for this. So y'all have a great day, a good week, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.